Hello, friends. Welcome back to True Health Tuesday. I am Maria Jose Hummel, and I am so glad to be back with you again for another presentation about health. And I promised you that we would be talking about diabetes and prediabetes, and actually, as you could see on the screen, other metabolic diseases. And that's where we will be beginning today, because actually we will be doing 4 of these presentations, maybe even 5 if we, for some reason, are not able to cover everything on all these, 4 Tuesdays that we will be doing. It won't be 4 Tuesdays in a row, as you know, we do every other Tuesday. So it was going to take us about 8 weeks to cover this. We might go on to a 5th presentation, just if we are not able to cover everything. But I just want to make sure that I give you all the information that I have, because I've been studying diabetes for so long. I have all this information in my head that I want to share with you. So I want to make sure that you have it. I don't want to forget to pray. So we're going to go ahead and pray first. Okay. So let's start with a prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the opportunity to be together, to have this wonderful technology that allows us to share this presentation with people all over the world. And we ask you to be with us, to bless this presentation, that everything that we share together, that may be blessed by you, and that may be for the benefit of everybody who is connected. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. I want to let you know that I have been studying diabetes for a long, long time. So it's not something new for me. In fact, it's one of my, as I guess you would say, one of my specialties. So I'm super excited to share this with you. In fact, I have this same sort of series in Spanish, and I've had it for a long, long time in my YouTube channel in Spanish. And this is the first time this is going to be like in English on YouTube. So I'm super happy that this is going to be, published in these YouTube channels. So super happy about that. I just want to get started with the disclaimer that I always give, that this is not meant to be any kind of treatment for anybody. So I don't want anybody to think that this is going to be, somehow, some kind of prescription for anyone. It's not. It's just meant to be educational. Number one. Number two, as you always know, I always go by the spiritual rule that I always follow, which is to the law and the testimony, as Isaiah 8:20 says. I hope you follow that as well. And I also wanted to let you know, aside from the spiritual guideline that I always follow for not only my spiritual teachings, as if you will, but also for nutrition and health, I also follow this, to the law and the testimony. But I also believe in the importance of um, scientific knowledge. And as you see at the bottom, experts' opinion is kind of the lowest quality of scientific evidence, if you will. At the top, you see reviews, meta-analysis. That's the highest quality of scientific evidence. And if you wanted to know why I think that this is so important, this is from Christian Education. The top quotation says, "A knowledge of science of all kinds is power, and it is the purpose of God that advanced science shall be taught in our schools as a preparation for the work that is to precede the closing scenes of Earth's history." That's right now, I think. So closely is health related to our happiness that we cannot have the latter without the former. A practical knowledge of science of human life is necessary in order to glorify God in our bodies. So that is why I think scientific knowledge is so important, and to follow scientific evidence is so important. And God wants us to have common sense. He wants us to reason from common sense. I just wanted to also share that with you. I always share this with everyone, but I just wanted to be at the beginning of every one of my presentations, because not always people who have seen my previous presentations or people who are connected today have seen my previous presentations. I just wanted to always share that. But to begin today, I wanted to share with you why my background is when it comes to diabetes. About 15 years ago, I started working at a clinic in Watsonville. And this is it. Well, it doesn't look like this anymore, but this is Salud para la Gente, and it's a clinic, a community clinic in Watsonville, California. It's been remodeled, so it looks a little different right now. But I was a clinical nutritionist for 5.5 years, and I worked with diabetics a lot. In fact, I worked in the women's health area, so I worked with a lot of gestational diabetics, but type 2 diabetes as well, for many years. So that's one thing that I did for many, many years. But also, I wanted to show you the fellowship hall of the Watsonville Seventh-day Adventist Church. And I was a member for many, many years until I transferred my membership to Living Manna. So right before I transferred my membership to Living Manna online church, I was a member of the Watsonville Seventh-day Adventist Church. And for about 10 years, we did a reversing diabetes seminar, and it lasted for 6 weeks every year in the fall. And we invited members of the community. Most of the people who came to our seminar were non-Adventists. Between 20 to 30 people came every year. We used to do it 2 times a year in the beginning, and then we had to move to once a year only because of my work. Actually, I was too busy to do it twice a year. But we used to get about 25 to 30 people every year, most of them non-Adventists, who would come. So, by the way, health could be actually used for evangelism. I think I've said this many times, but health is evangelism, FYI. I hope you're listening. I hope you're paying attention to what I'm saying. Health is evangelism. So all these people from the communities to come to our classes, about 6 weeks, on how to reverse not only diabetes, but obviously prediabetes and all the related conditions that we talked about the first day. If you haven't seen the first presentation that I gave for True Health Tuesdays, it's called 10 Days to Better Health. I hope you'll watch it if you haven't seen it. I will talk a little bit about that here, because it's a little bit related to what we're going to talk about today. But yes, a blessing for the community. You can do this too, by the way. If you want to work with your local church, you can do this. You can take any of my slides and use them to give presentations at your local church. So anyway, that's what we did for about 10 years. We did also some food demos as part of this. Anyway, so that's what I did too. This is a picture of me translated from Dr. Milton Teskey. Dr. Milton Teskey worked for Weimar Institute, and Weimar Institute is right here in California. It's owned by Seventh-day Adventists, and they have a program called New Start. I don't know how many of you have heard of New Start. Put a one in the chat, or put me, or put something in the chat if you heard of the New Start program. New Start, the 8 letters of New Start represent the 8 principles of health taught by the Seventh-day Adventist Church, as taught by, yes, 1. Okay, we have a 1 already. Yes, thank you, Harriet. As taught, the 8 principles of health as taught by the Seventh-day Adventist Church, given to us by the Spirit of Prophecy. We have another 1. Yes. So the Weimar Institute uses these 8 principles of health for a program they actually use. People come and stay for, I think, 2 weeks. I don't remember exactly, but a lot of people come there with their chronic conditions and they stay there. Well, Dr. Teskey worked for them, actually giving these seminars at churches during the weekends. He would do this for many, many years. I went with him to Honduras and I translated his presentations. I went as a nutritionist as well, so I gave some of the nutrition presentations. There was another nutritionist who went with us who gave the cooking demos. I translated for her, but I translated his medical presentations. I learned a lot from him. I incorporated that knowledge into my presentations. This was many years ago, about 7 or 8 years ago. And so I learned from him, from the Weimar, knowledge that he had. So I incorporated that into my knowledge. By the way, we went there, we did a 6-day seminar. We invited people from the community. This was in rural Honduras, you guys. I thought in Honduras there's for sure, people in rural Honduras would definitely not have all these conditions that people here in the United States have. People live in the country over there and, grow their own food. Oh, we have another one. Yes. Um, I thought for sure people in rural Honduras would not have diabetes, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, all these chronic conditions. Boy, was I wrong. Even though people live in the country and very natural settings over there, grow their own food, they have the same things, you guys: diabetes, high cholesterol, high blood pressure, high weight. And so we did the exact same things we teach over here. We taught people how to exercise, how to eat better. We would take their blood glucose in the morning before they ate breakfast. Then we took them for walks. Then we did presentations. We gave them, good food, plant based. Like I said, I did some of the translation. Here's the other nutritionist from the Fresno Seventh Adventist Church, and I translated for her. So anyway, I learned a lot from these people, and that's how I learned a lot of the knowledge that I'll share today. And as I said, the first presentation that I gave, 10 Days to Better Health, today I work for a nonprofit, and we do a program called Community RX in English. The name in Spanish is Salud en tu Plato, which is a 10-day program we do for the community. And we help people to, first of all, eat a whole food plant-based diet for 10 days. And we help people to improve their health. And we only have them for 10 days. We teach them how to eat a plant-based diet. We can't go check what they're actually eating. We only rely on what they tell us. But I just wanted to show you real quick. I don't know if I actually showed you some of the results. I might not have had the time to show you that first presentation, some of the actual results from people. I don't remember actually if I showed you or not. I just wanted to show you just some results. It's not that everybody gets the same results, but these are some success stories. Okay, these are not the real names, obviously, for privacy reasons. But I just wanted to. I did put in bold some of the results that have to do with diabetes, just so that you see, because we're talking about diabetes today. But actually, you can see even some of the cholesterol numbers, how much they changed in only, well, 2 weeks, because we do this on Sundays. So there's 2 Sundays, 3 Sundays actually. So they come after 14 days. But in 14 days, these are some of the numbers, you guys. For instance, this lady, her fasting glucose went down from 158 to 71. Somebody's cholesterol went down from 228 to 148. This is high from super nice, right? Like this is statins. They give you statins, and this is no statins needed, right? LDL, this is very, very high. This is wonderful. No statins needed right here. Okay. So this is amazing results. There's like no medication that will give you this kind of results in 2 weeks. Look at this person's fasting glucose. This is definitely in the diet. This is diabetic for sure. They'll give you like, for sure, metformin with this kind of numbers, maybe even insulin. I don't know. Like 184 is definitely diabetic. Look at these triglycerides number. Oh, by the way, this person went from 184 to 74. Now, if they stay with this diet, it's very likely that they will remain with these numbers. If they go back to eating what they were eating before, it's possible they'll go back to really bad numbers. But if they persevere, it's very likely that they will keep the good numbers. Look at these person's triglycerides, off the charts. Same here. People will lose weight. I mean, these are amazing numbers. I don't have a lot of time to go over, but look at these fasting glucose numbers, okay? I mean, these are the percentages. Look at the percentages, okay? This is only in 10 days. LDL dropped 22%, 25%, 27%, 30%, 38%, 51%. These are the kinds of numbers we see when people eat a whole food plant-based diet. This is just the diet. We don't even tell them to exercise. We don't have the ability to really do an intense lifestyle program. But at Weimar, that's what they do. Okay, that's what they do. Intense lifestyle. They cover everything. We only do the diets. This is the kind of things that you do. Are you a member of American Lifestyle? Oh, thank you. Because I was just going to show you that today I got an email. This is just very timely. It's not, I don't want to brag. It's not that I want to brag. I just wanted to let you know that I'm not making things up, that when I tell you these things, you can trust that this is good quality information. I just got an email from the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. I am a member, yes, but I got an email today that I finally got my certification for that I submitted all my paperwork like weeks ago. I am a member. I'm also certified as a lifestyle medicine professional. But I finally got my other certification, which is a certification for type 2 diabetes remission. So I have two certifications from the American College of Lifestyle Medicine. I have the certification for being a lifestyle medicine professional. That's like the basic certification. But this is an additional certification for type 2 diabetes remission because I took the additional classes for diabetes remission, type 2 diabetes remission. I just got this email today, so I just wanted to share this with you. I'm super happy that I got this certification as well. So this is very timely, super duper. So Pamela, you're also, yay, also super duper. Yeah, this is a great organization. And one of the things that I really was very ingrained in my brain after I got certified is the importance of evidence, of being evidence based. And I really appreciate that from the training. Uh, yeah, thank you, Pamela, from the training from American College of Lifestyle Medicine, which, by the way, is an organization that was started by Adventist doctors. It's now expanded way beyond that, yeah, it's a very great organization. I really like it. Anyway, I wanted to then move on and let's talk about why are diabetes and other chronic diseases so common and why are they related. We're going to talk about that too. But there, as you know, there's different types of diabetes. Diabetes type 2 is the most common one. 90 to 95% of diabetics are type 2 diabetics, but it's not the only kind of diabetes, as you probably know. There's type 1, which is actually an autoimmune disease. It's not as common as type 1. As type 2, sorry. Type 2 is the most common. Type 1 is much less common, is an autoimmune disease. It used to be called juvenile diabetes. Did you know this? It's no longer called juvenile diabetes. Do you know why type 1 diabetes is no longer called juvenile diabetes? It's the kind of diabetes that happens because the cells in the pancreas that are in charge of producing insulin in the pancreas are completely destroyed uh, by this autoimmune um, process that happens. In other words, your own immune system destroys these cells that produce insulin. But this usually happens in childhood. And so it's usually diagnosed in childhood. And by default, you absolutely have to take insulin for the rest of your life. It used to be called juvenile diabetes because it's always diagnosed in youth, in childhood, but it's no longer called that way. And by the way, type 2 diabetes used to be called adult onset diabetes. So that's the differentiation. It used to be that type 2 was always diagnosed 40-year plus, always. And the reason why this one is no longer called juvenile and the type 2 is no longer called adult onset is because type 2 diabetes is now diagnosed also in children. In fact, when I was working at Salud para la Gente, the community clinic in Watsonville, California, the youngest person that I saw with my own eyes. Now, this is my own personal experience, and there's probably much younger children that have been diagnosed. This is just in my own personal experience. The youngest person that I saw with my own eyes in my office with type 2 diabetes already diagnosed and taking medications for type 2 diabetes was 12 years old. A young girl with type 2. I'm only 5'0", you guys. I'm very short. She was 5'10", 12 years old, 5'10", 220 pounds at 12 years old. So, and that's only the youngest person I have seen. There's probably younger children with type 2. Therefore, type 2 is no longer adult onset. So type 1 cannot just be called juvenile because guess what? Type 2 is also juvenile, if you will, if it happens at young ages. So those terms are no longer used. Okay, so that's type 1. It's an autoimmune disease. Type 1. Type 2 is not an autoimmune disease. It's a lifestyle disease. That's the one we're going to concentrate a little bit more because it's related to the other ones that we have been talking about. Because it has to do with insulin resistance, which is what we talked about on the first presentation when we talked about 10 days to better health. And the body is okay. Somebody's talking about the body makes its own insulin every day. Yes, except for type 1. So it doesn't, because then the autoimmune process actually destroys those cells. Okay, there's also gestational diabetes that I mentioned earlier, and it's a little bit related to actually the lifestyle diabetes, in the sense, I don't know how many of you know this, but 50% of women, actually, 50% of women who have had gestational diabetes go on to develop type 2 diabetes. Did you know this? How many of you knew this? 50% of women with gestational diabetes go on to develop type 2. And with Hispanic women, at least, I think most minority women, people of color, it's within the first 5 years after giving birth. How many of you knew this? So yes, they are related. They're actually related, type 2 and gestational. All right. There's another one, you guys. How many of you have heard of type 1.5? I bet you haven't heard of that. Or most of you. How many of you had heard of 1.5 before today? 1.5. It's actually it's autoimmune diabetes, just like diabetes 1, type 1, but it happens in adult age. That's why it's 1.5. It's kind of in between 1 and 2. So Pamela had heard of it. That's because she's a member of ACLM. That's why she heard it. All right, great, Pamela. Congrats. Anybody else have heard of this? Anyway, it's between 1 and 2 because it's autoimmune, but it happens in adult life. So it's latent autoimmune diabetes in adults, LADA. Interesting, right? It could be misdiagnosed as type 2. So you have to be careful. If you have diabetes and you tried lifestyle modifications, and for some reason that is not responding to lifestyle modifications, you could have your doctor check for antibodies, and they could determine whether you have an autoimmune diabetes. And it could be an autoimmune diabetes. In that case, it's 1.5. It's not 2. And in that case, you might need to take insulin, just if you had type 1. But we will talk about actually how lifestyle modifications are just as important for people who have type 1 diabetes, 1.5, 2, all of the diabetes, actually. All right, one more thing. Have you ever heard of type 3 diabetes? Anybody? You're like, what? Many of you are probably like, you gotta be kidding me. There's no such a thing as type 3 diabetes. Never heard of this. Well, there's a hint right here, right? On the screen. It says sugar in your brain. It has to do with the brain. Will you in the future talk about types of anemia? Well, that's a good idea. I could. Tell me more about it. What do you want to hear? All right, I'll tell you what type 3. Here it is. Do you see? Alzheimer's disease. Alzheimer's disease. You can take a picture of this, read it on your own. Basically, what it says right here is that insulin resistance. Remember when we talked about insulin resistance? Any of you who watched the first presentation, 10 Days to Better Health, we talked about the underlying reason for diabetes and prediabetes and all the other conditions related to insulin resistance. It could actually happen in the brain too. That's what this abstract is talking about. And if you go on to read the whole study, it will tell you basically that insulin resistance happens in the brain. It happens in the whole body, obviously. So that's what it's talking about. Now, if you haven't watched the first presentation, I highly recommend you go back and watch it because I won't have too much time. I don't want to take too much time talking about the root cause of type 2 diabetes and the other chronic diseases. We already covered it. So I don't want to spend too much time on it. But okay, my microcystic anemia, I will make a note of that and I will look into it. And thank you for that suggestion. All right. I will not, like I said, I won't spend too much time on this because it's already been covered in that first presentation. But what we talked about in the first presentation was the fact that we have glucose, as you know, is the fuel for the cells. That fuel needs to go inside of the cells and it goes into the cells through these receptors. These receptors are usually not open all the time. And what opens these receptors is insulin, which acts as a key. Sometimes it's illustrated as a key. I illustrated in my little drawing here as a stick man. Basically, what the insulin does is opens up the receptors for glucose to go inside of the cell, then to be used as a fuel. And actually, in this drawing, what you see right here, these little organelles inside the cell that you see with the green and the little red inside, these organelles inside the cell are called mitochondria. And the mitochondria is basically like the little engines or the furnaces, if you will. That's where the glucose gets converted into energy. It's kind of like the engines inside of the cell, which actually make the energy for you to function, for you to move, for you to wake up, do everything you need to do. All the cells, everything that happens in your body needs energy. So that's where the magic happens in the mitochondria. So basically, the glucose is the fuel for that. So the insulin opens up these channels for the glucose to go in and be used up as the fuel. But what's been happening with the modern lifestyle, if you will, sedentarism and excess calories, particularly excess fat in the diet and accumulation of fat in the body as well, is that we have this intramyocellular accumulation of lipids. Intramyocellular lipids. We talked about this. So if you haven't heard this, I'm just going over it again, but I really covered it in detail in that first presentation, 10 Days to Better Health. So what we have is an accumulation of fat within the cells. This is the intramyocellular. Intra means inside. Myo means muscle. Cellular means cells. So inside of muscle cells, mostly. Lipids means fat. So we see this abnormal accumulation of fats within cells. And this abnormal accumulation of fat within cells produces this block, this interference with the action of insulin. And that is basically the basis of this theory of insulin resistance. So the insulin is there. There is no lack of insulin at the moment. The insulin is there, but the action of insulin is being blocked by the intramyocellular lipids. And that's why then you see an accumulation of glucose outside of the cell. Now, the pancreas tries to then do something about this this situation. And the only thing that pancreas can do at the moment is produce more insulin. This is hyperinsulinemia. So this is the first problem you start to see. Number one, hyperglycemia. And number two, hyperinsulinemia. Now we got two problems, you see. And of course, we have too much fat. So now we have hyper lipidemia, right? Hyperlipids, too many lipids, hyperlipidemia, hyperglycemia, hyper insulinemia. Too many wrong things going on at the same time. Now, the thing is, all of this insulin actually is kind of covering up the problem. We'll see that in a minute, but it's actually covering up the problem. I did talk about this last time too, but I just wanted to show you other illustrations. This is more of a textbook illustration, and you see normal cell here, and the insulin and the glucose is going in. The glucose is these red little balls is actually going in normally. But the bottom here, this is an insulin resistant cell. You see the blocked channels, the insulin receptors, well, they're blocked, and the glucose is not going in. And in this other illustration, here are the yellow balls. Do you see the yellow balls right there? That's the intramyocellular lipid. Do you see that? Intramyocellular lipid means fat, you guys, fat inside of the cell. Inside of the cell. That's very important. Now, here's another illustration just for, sake of more illustrations so that you see what is a uh, healthy process. The top, in type 1, the pancreas is not producing insulin. That's type 1. That's the middle one. Type 2, insulin is being produced. That's the difference. In type 2, insulin is there. What's not happening is the insulin working properly. So that's insulin resistance. Insulin is there, but it's not working. All right. Also, last time I showed you, first, before that, I wanted to make sure that I mentioned that insulin is being produced in extra amounts. That's hyperinsulinemia. That's one way you can actually know if you have insulin resistance. Your doctor can order that test. You can be tested for hyperinsulinemia. That's one way to know if you have insulin resistance. Last time I also showed this table. This comes from the book Goodbye Diabetes. I actually recommend this book. It's one of the first books I read on diabetes and insulin resistance. It's a great book from Dr. Wes Youngberg from Loma Linda. Highly recommend it. I actually met Dr. Wes Youngberg in person. He's a really nice person. So this is one table that is very illustrative of what I'm kind of the point I'm trying to make. Because the top row, you see fasting blood sugar. All the way to the right, you see diabetes, stage 5, and that's diabetes. That's when your blood sugar at fasting blood sugar is 126 or more. That's definitely diabetes. Stage 3, right then in the middle, says pre-diabetes. If your blood sugar is 100 or more, that's pre-diabetes. Okay, we all know that. Okay, fine. If your blood sugar is 100, pre-diabetes. But what Youngberg is right there, right below the table. That's the last name. You can see it right below the table. Youngberg. It's Youngberg. But the name is spelled right there, right below the table. But the point I made last time is that, and this is actually in the book, and it's very well explained by Dr. Youngberg in the book, is that if your blood sugar fasting is above the optimal, and look at optimals all the way in the left. Optimal blood sugar is between 70 and 84. All right. But it's below pre-diabetes. That's stage 3 over here. So it's 100 and plus. So if you go tomorrow to doctor, they take out your fasting blood sugar and it's 90. What's your doctor going to say? Your doctor's going to say, you know what? Great. Bravo. Your blood sugar is normal. Go home. Everything's good. Keep eating what you're eating. You're doing great. Bravo. Right? Isn't that what they're going to say? All good. Dr. Youngberg says, and actually not, he's not the only one. This is, if you're a member of ACLM, you're probably going to hear this over and over again. What's going on here is that maybe this is not all good. It's above optimal, below prediabetes. What Dr. Youngberg observed when he went to Guam, I told you all this story in the first presentation, go watch it, is that there's people who have, they're within these two numbers, right? 84 and 100, that are already experiencing the complications. We'll talk about those complications are in a minute. That are already experiencing the complications of high blood sugar, or actually the complications of insulin resistance, without having prediabetes yet, without having, listen to me, this is very important. They are already experiencing the complications of insulin resistance before having prediabetes. The complications of insulin resistance. Because you can have insulin resistance and have the complications of insulin resistance before having the prediabetes, before having diabetes. That's the issue. Insulin resistance has complications beyond diabetes, beyond prediabetes. That's why I titled this presentation Reversing Diabetes and Metabolic Diseases, because it's not just about diabetes and prediabetes, it's other things related. That's why it's important to know this. What is insulin resistance and its complications? Well, these people were experiencing those complications way before they started having prediabetes. This is a process that can last years before you get to prediabetes. You see what I'm saying? That's why it's important to know this. Dr. Youngberg observed these people. They were young. Why were they having high blood pressure, fatty liver, and high lipids and all these other things, and high triglycerides? And all? Why? They were young. Why were they having these things? Well, because they were insulin resistant. So then he actually published another one later, this other table, much more expanded. And at the bottom, do you see the bottom row? It says increased heart disease risk. Do you see that? The bottom? That's why this is important to know, because you start experiencing increased heart disease risk way before you get to pre-diabetes, way before diabetes for sure. You don't have to have diabetes to have increased heart disease risk. You don't even have to have pre-diabetes. Look at this table. You already have 20% increased heart disease risk. You don't even have pre-diabetes yet. No pre-diabetes yet. Your doctor will say your blood sugar is normal at 95. You already have higher risk of heart disease. See? Why? Because there's insulin resistance. Now, I also showed you this last time. I don't know if you remember it. These are the complications. Do you see how many? Here's type 1. Here's type 1.5. Do you see the top? Type 1. Then type 1.5. We already talked about this. Prediabetes. Type 2. Gestational. Okay, that's all the diabetes we talked about. Then on the right, after gestational, there's cancer. What's cancer have to do with all of this? High blood sugar is a high risk for cancer, you guys. It is. Coronary artery disease. We already know that. Did you know that 70% of diabetics don't die of diabetes? They die of either a heart attack or a stroke. 70% of diabetics die of either a heart attack or a stroke. Hypertension, atherosclerosis, obesity, high cholesterol, fatty liver, PCOS, What does that have to do with anything? Yes, insulin resistance is related to PCOS. Alzheimer's, I just mentioned that. Type 3 diabetes. What? Yes. Neuropathy, where we already know that diabetics have that. Blindness, yes. Your retina, which is up above, says retinopathy. Your retina detaches and you become blind. I met someone at 40 years old, right here in Watsonville, 20 minutes from where I live. 40-year-old lady, young woman, 40 years old, super young, don't you think? 40 years old, completely blind from diabetes. So, neuropathy, blindness, kidney failure. How many people have I met that have dialysis? I can't even tell you. Getting dialysis because of diabetes. Do you know how much it lowers the quality of life to have to go to some dialysis center 3 or 4 times a week, be hooked up to a machine for hours? You know what that dialysis machine does? It takes all your blood out, filters it, because that's what your kidneys are. They're filters. They'll filter the poison in your blood, put it in the pee, and basically flush it out of your body. And when your kidneys don't work, you poison yourself, right? You don't flush out all the poison, so you start poisoning yourself. So you have to be hooked into a machine that will filter those poisons out of your toxins out of your body, so you don't poison yourself. That's what dialysis is. So kidney failure, retinopathy, and erectile dysfunction. All of these things are related to insulin resistance. You can have all of these things, or these things that are not diabetes, of course, before diabetes. That's why it's so important. That's why it's so important to know about these things. We talked about the liver. Fatty liver is an insulin resistant liver. And you could have high cholesterol. I already said high cholesterol, high glucose, high fatty acids. So hypercholesterolemia, hyperglycemia, hyperlipidemia. And this high cholesterol will spill out into the rest of your body and travel through these arteries. This high cholesterol will travel through these arteries and start to accumulate inside of the arteries. And guess what? That will then lead to atherosclerosis, then will LDL concentrations, arterial plaque, hypertension. You will need statins, and of course, it will lead to higher mortality, all these diseases. So, what again are the reasons for this? Is the fat. And so people confuse this, right? People confuse this, think it's all the sugar. It's not just all the sugar. The sugar just turns into fat. That's why sugar is a problem, because it turns into fat. But people forget that fat is already fat. It doesn't have to be turned into fat. Fat is already fat, and consuming too much fat is just as much of a problem. In fact, it's a bigger problem. And of course, lack of exercise, because if we were running marathons every day, then it would be no problem. You see? Now, look at this interesting slide. You can actually have an so this is what I was talking about, how eating a healthy diet and having a healthy lifestyle is important for both type 1 and type 2, because as a type 1 diabetic, a person can actually have unhealthy lifestyle, let's say. And so they can have the autoimmune diabetes. With an unhealthy lifestyle, they can actually start developing insulin resistance as well. Let's say they eat a high-fat diet, which a lot of people with type 1, they're told to eat a low-carb diet. So they start eating a low-carb diet, meaning usually high-fat, high-protein, high-fat. They might be sedentary. So now they start developing insulin resistance. So they have the type 1 and they have insulin resistance. Now they have what some people call double diabetes. Have you ever heard of that before? Double diabetes. What? It's a new concept. New concept for some people. Double diabetes, type 1 and type 2. Because you got the autoimmune and the insulin resistance. Both. That's why lifestyle modifications are just as important for type 1 and 1.5 and 2, both of it, everyone. Gestational. Everybody will benefit from lifestyle modifications. Isn't that interesting? Now, here's where the confusion comes. I ask people, what elevates blood sugar more? Eating high carb or high fat? What do you think? What in a person who's not diabetic, okay? A person who's not diabetic, what will elevate blood sugar more? Put it in the chat. Eating a high fat meal or eating a high carb meal? What will elevate blood sugar more? What do you think? Because most people get it wrong. What do you think? Put it in the chat. I don't see anybody. High fat. Okay. Last time I did this with a Spanish group, I had half and half. Half people said high carb, and the other half said high fat. Huh. I was like, well, because I usually get, so 5 years ago, I would ask this question. 90% would say high carb. The other day, I did this presentation last week on Tuesday, actually, last week, 7 days ago, with a Spanish. Oh, so far it's 4 high fats, no high carbs so far. Ooh, high fat is winning. So last week, 7 days ago, I did this presentation and it was half and half, 50% high fat, 50% high carb. Today, the high fat is winning. I think I have a very educated group today. Well, you guys, congrats, because the high fat won today. So let me show you this very old study, where they study this. Now, this is, like I said, non-diabetics, because a diabetic, we already know, they already are insulin resistant. They cannot tolerate carbs. So they eat carbs, they cannot metabolize them. But with a person who is non-diabetic, they divided them in two. They gave them a high fat, or not the other person a high carb. And this is what happened. Here is the result. The high fat meal, you're welcome, Aaron. The high fat meal elevates the blood sugar more than the high carb. But most people, now you guys are highly educated, you already know the right answer. But you ask people in the street, what do you think they're going to say? I would bet more than 50% of people will say high carb. In fact, all the keto people will say high carb. You know that. All the keto people have this wrong perception that is the carbs that are the enemy and the fat is all the good stuff. Fat's good, carbs are bad. And yet here we have the science that shows us that fat will produce insulin resistance. So I have a video. I only have it in Spanish, you guys, but because there's plenty of information in English. That's why I make it in Spanish, because in Spanish there's so little that somebody has to do it in Spanish. So I had to do it in English. Had to do it in Spanish. In English, there's plenty. So I had a Spanish video, but you know what? In my Spanish channel, that's the one video that has the most thumbs down. Is so unpopular because all the keto haters, the keto haters that hate my video, they love keto, they hate my video. So the video is called Why the Keto Diet is the Worst for Diabetes. So the people who love keto and hate my video, thumbs down on my video. And I say that keto diet is the worst for diabetes. The reason why is because you start eating high fat, high fat, high fat. Okay, you're not eating any carbs. So of course, you start eating keto, you're not eating carbs, okay? All of a sudden, your A1C is like on the floor. Your fasting glucose is like, boom, super low. Why? Of course, you're not eating carbs. What are you going to convert into glucose? You got no carbs in your diet. You've got no glucose. So, of course, your glucose is low. but you're eating all this fat, all this fat, all this fat, all this fat. Guess what's happening? You're making yourself super insulin resistant. You're making yourself super carb intolerant. While you're not eating any carbs, no problem. Guess what? After 6 months, guess what happens next time you eat an apple? You have a piece of bread. Guess what happens to your glucose? Boom. All of a sudden, you can't eat bread anymore. You can't metabolize carbs. Is that what you want? Not being able to ever eat normal like a normal person? Most people stay on keto for 6 months and then they drop because they can't live like that forever. It's not sustainable for most people. Did you know that? Most people can't live like that. Anyway, so just so you know, I think it's the worst. I wanted to give you some interesting statistics. I think this is kind of scary, honestly. This is just pre-diabetes. This is not even insulin resistance. This is pre-diabetes. 100 plus fasting glucose. Half of adults age 40 to 59 have pre-diabetes. Did you know? Half. 2/3 of adults 60 to 74, and 3/4 of adults older than 74. The first time we did our program, my work, December of 2022. I got hired in September. We did it in December 2022. And my boss said, we should partner with a church. You know why? Because our program is based on it was Community RX is the name in English. And she started it because of a film. There's a documentary called Plant Pure Nation, made by Nelson Campbell, the son of T. Colin Campbell. T. Colin Campbell is very famous. He's luminary in the plant-based community. His son Nelson made a documentary, I think it's 2017 that came out, called Plant Pure Nation. And they go to a church somewhere in the East Coast, I think, African-American church, I think. And you see in the church, the people do the program 10 days and they do great, blah, blah, blah. And so my boss, oh my goodness, I'm running out of time, you guys. Okay, my boss is like, why don't we partner with a church? Do you know any churches? And I'm like, yeah. Any Spanish churches? Yeah. Well, do you think they would want to do a 10-day program? Yeah, I think they would want to do a 10-day program. It's in the Bible. All right, well, can you call them? Sure. Okay, we did the 10-day program at the Spanish Watsonville Church, Seventh-day Adventist. 34 members of the church signed up. 92% high hypertension, didn't know. Over 90% had pre-diabetes, they did not know. You see these numbers right here? Most people have pre-diabetes or hypertension. They don't know. My goodness. All right, another statistic that's super scary. Do you know that it's predicted that kids, they're not even kids anymore. Kids that were born after 2000, they're young people now in their 20s. Of course, some of them are kids. So anybody who's been born after the year 2000, they expect that 1/3 will be diabetic in their life. But this is in the general population. Between Hispanics and African Americans, it'll be 1 out of 2. Half the kids who are people of color will be diabetic. My goodness gracious. So what are the causes again? These are all lifestyle related for the most part, because most people will be type 2. Number 1, the fat we carry, that's obesity and overweight. This adipose tissue will infiltrate into the cells and will become also that intramyocellular lipid. Okay, so that will block the action of insulin. And by the way, you can be a skinny fat person, by the way. So just because you're normal weight doesn't mean you don't have adipose tissue. So this is on the left, you see normal body composition, but on the right, you see an unhealthy body composition. You can have normal weight and still have excess fat. You can even be normal weight and be obese. if you have unhealthy body composition. So just because you have normal weight doesn't mean you're not obese. You can still have abnormal body composition. So make sure you check your body composition, even if you're quote unquote normal. If you're not doing proper exercise, we're going to talk about this in our third part of this 4-part series. Don't miss it. It's very important. By the way, this is I have a quote of the Spirit of Prophecy that talks about this. You don't want to miss that presentation. It's number 3. We're number 1. So be in 6 weeks or 4 weeks. I don't even know how to count anymore, but don't miss that one. Number 3. All right. Number 2 cause, rich diet. Eating excess fat. That fat does not need to be converted into fat. The sugar will be converted to fat. By the way, fructose is not used like glucose as fuel for the cells. Glucose is used as fuel for the cells. Fructose, industrialized fructose, fructose from fruit does not do this because it has fiber. But industrialized fructose does not have fiber. It goes straight to the liver and it becomes fat. FYI. Fat is already fat, does not need to be converted. It goes straight to our cells, to our liver, everywhere. All right. No bueno. Okay. Next, lack of exercise. Because if you're running all the time, if you're exercising, if you're moving your body, well, you can eat a little bit more calories. Also, of course, you want to eat a healthy calorie. But if you're also not using your body, well, like I said, we're going to talk about that in our third presentation. Genetics. A lot of people say anyway, well, I have diabetes because my mom, my dad, my grandma, everybody in my family diabetes. So I inherited the diabetes. So it's not my fault. Really? Well, you're partly right. Well, not exactly. You actually have a predisposition if you have a family member, especially a direct family member with diabetes. Yes, you do have that predisposition, but that's not the whole story. You still have to activate those genes. Those genes can be deactivated. That's epigenetics. You need to activate those genes. If they're not activated, you're not going to get the diabetes or prediabetes or whatever other chronic disease. Very closely related to this is ethnic origin. When I used to work at the clinic, every single woman that we had in our clinic that was pregnant, we had to test for diabetes because every single woman was minority. And being part of a minority group automatically put them at a high risk for diabetes, just being ethnic minority. But guess what? I'm going to just tell you a story. In the United States, the ethnic group with the highest rate of diabetes. Do you know which group it is, by the way? What group do you think? Ethnic group, the highest rate of diabetes in the United States. Does anyone know? Does anyone know? Put in the chat. Anyone know what the ethnic group with the highest rate of diabetes? I bet you guys don't know. Or maybe someone knows. Maybe someone knows. Does anyone know? Well, I'll just tell you. The ethnic group with the highest rate of diabetes is the Pima Indians. Mostly from, I think, Arizona area. Nope, not black, you guys, not Spanish. See? Pima Indians. But guess what? The Pima Indians were a larger group like 700 years ago, I think, a long time ago. And they split. And some of them settled in northern Mexico. Some of them settled, not Pacific Islander, Native Americans, but certain Native Americans, Pima Indians in particular. Like I said, they split. Some of them settled in northern Mexico. Some of them settled in southern part of the United States, southwest. So the Pima Indians have very close relatives, if you will, in northern Mexico. It turns out that their close relatives in northern Mexico live in a northern state of Mexico called Chihuahua. They live in the Sierras of Chihuahua. And they're actually famous. You know why? Because they run. They're runners. Not only do they run long races, like 100-mile races, and they usually come up in the top 10. They're famous for that. And they're called the Tarahumara Indians. I don't know how many of you've heard of them. They like to run in their, very traditional robes or whatever, their dress, their attire, and their shoes are like sandals. They run in those sandals. And like I said, they run even 100-mile races. They usually are in the top 10, even top 5. They eat a very simple diet, mostly plant based. They're very humble means. They don't have a lot of money. They don't have, McDonald's up in the Sierras. They don't have Burger Kings or, Taco Bells or any of that. They grow their own food. They eat corn, beans, their own greens, things they grow. They eat meat maybe a few times a year whenever they have like a big party, a couple times a year. Even the women run. In fact, you can even go to Netflix and watch a documentary called Lorena. Lorena. And it talks about a girl that runs. It's pretty cool. So anyway, what I want to say is that the Pima Indians and the Tarahumara are like closely related genetically. They're like first cousins practically. They have almost the same genes. And the Tarahumaras have some of the lowest rates of diabetes in the world. In the world. They have almost the same genes as the Pima Indians. And the Pima Indians have the highest rates of diabetes in the United States. The Tarahumaras have one of the lowest rates of diabetes in the world. So is it the genes? That's the main point. Is it the genes? No, it's not the genes. You can turn off the genes or turn them on. It's up to you. The lifestyle is what turns the genes on or off. It's up to you. So I just want to finish saying that diabetes is one of the things that will age your body the fastest. That blood sugar goes all over the body and does damage everywhere, like we said before. And your risk for heart attack, your diet is part of it for sure. Your risk for heart attack, like we said, goes up incredibly. Just with pre-diabetes, 50%, but with diabetes, up to 400%. Because, like we said, and your risk for stroke goes up incredibly because even the arteries of your brain start to be affected. As I said before, 70% of diabetics die of either a heart attack or a stroke. And of course, we have all these other complications, like I mentioned before, renal failure, and we have vision problems, blindness, and amputations because of the infections, because their uh, immune system is quite lowered. All this blood sugar higher lowers the immune system. That's a whole other topic. When COVID came up, that's when my videos went viral because I started talking about the immune system, and how to improve your immune system following 8 basic principles. Poof, my videos went really viral with that. So anyway, the four-part series, we're going to delve very deeply into how completely reverse prediabetes and the underlying condition for prediabetes and type 2 diabetes, which is actually insulin resistance. And people sometimes say, well, type 2 diabetes is not curable. In fact, when I went to teach one time a class, it's one of the first classes I taught at the clinic I used to work, the doctor who actually sent me some of her patients, she went with me to teach one of the classes. And one of the first things she said to the patients is like, if you're all diabetics, let me tell you that diabetes, you will have it for the rest of your life. Diabetes cannot be cured. And I was like, oh no, why did she say this? I was going to tell them that actually it could be, because guess what? Well, I did tell them the next class, I said, there's new research that a lot of doctors haven't even heard about. It's brand new. I tried to, out of respect for the doctor, to not contradict her. But it is true. A lot of doctors haven't even heard of this. This is a consensus statement from the ADA, the American Diabetes Association. And do you see the title? How do we define cure? I didn't say it. American Diabetes Association. I didn't say it. They're talking about, well, they say remission later in the paper, but whatever. You can call it cure, remission, whatever you want, reversal. The point is, you can lower your blood sugar to the point of not qualifying as diabetic anymore in about 85 to 90% of the cases. Maybe not everyone. There's some cases where after years and years and years of diabetes and over producing insulin, it is possible that the pancreas can be it could be exhausted. It can be used up too much. It cannot function any more properly. And it could be that a person cannot possibly reverse it 100% after many years of being diabetic. But it is possible that in most cases, it could possibly be reversed. So who am I to say? It could be reversed. But for that, you need to go to the root cause. So just taking medication, it only covers the symptom. The symptom is high blood sugar. You need to go to the root cause, and that is the insulin resistance. So it could be done. I just wanted to show you some papers that talk about it. It could be done in a sustainable manner. This is New Start from Weimar. They've done it for 40 years. You can read books about it. These are some of the books that talk about it. Dr. Joe Furman, Dr. Neil Barnard has done it. There's many, many books you can read. And of course, there's books from other authors that talk about all the other complications like heart disease. There's books that talk about the autoimmune diseases and many other things that you can, like documentaries and stuff. So why is this more widely known? Well, because first of all, it takes sometimes decades, generations for this information to trickle down from research into medical practice. Sometimes the doctors just think that the patients won't follow it, unfortunately. And sometimes it's true the patients won't follow it. They rather take the pill. Sometimes we as patients want the easy way out. We as patients sometimes rather take the pill. So sometimes the doctors are right. Sometimes the doctors just think, or they just don't have the time, honestly. They have 10 minutes. I used to work in a clinical setting, and I used to see how pressured doctors are to hurry up and see more patients. It depends on the setting, but sometimes doctors themselves are pressured for productivity. They need to see so many patients a day. They just don't have the time to sit down and talk with each patient for 1 hour to tell them about the diet and the exercise and all. They just don't have that kind of time. So it's just easier to write a prescription and just next, unfortunately. It's just the reality. And in medical journals, this is another truth, very sad, but they're dominated by the pharmaceutical industry that sponsors the studies. So not all these studies are published in the more, the more read out the studies that are the journals that are more widely read. That's just the sad reality, unfortunately. So that's why a lot of doctors don't know. It's just not as well known. Anyway, we're trying to make it more well known. The next class, the next session in 2 weeks, we're going to go very in detail about the best diet to reverse insulin resistance, which is related to all those other complications that we talked about, prediabetes and type 2 diabetes. So if you want to know all the details about what's the best diet, so the actual eating pattern, nutrition for Insulin resistance, remember, it's related to all those metabolic conditions, prediabetes and diabetes. It will be in 2 weeks. Okay, we're going to talk about just the diet. After that, we're going to talk about the best kind of exercise. And most people have no idea. They just think walk. No, it's so much it's so much more than that. People are just mistaken about just there's so much more to that, okay? So we're going to talk about that in 4 weeks. And then we're going to talk about other things that much more that people have no idea about. There's just so much more I want to share with you. But anyway, with this is just the introduction. Uh, there's so much more information. I just wanted to show you one thing though. In the program that we do at my work, I just told you, Community RX, Salud en tu Plato. I wanted to show you just the results of our first year. These are just the averages of our first year. We've done it for 2 years now, and it's just about the same, but I just wanted to show you the averages. Again, we don't go to people's houses. We don't control what they eat, but we give them suggestions. And this is more or less what we've seen. In just 10 days, we see that the best results is definitely for lipids because we ask them to eat no oil. And so just leaving out the oil, leaving out the animal products, the lipids go down quite dramatically. So you can see right there the total cholesterol is 14% drop, but the LDL is 22% drop. So that's very, very dramatic. That's what you really can drop without oil and no animal products. The triglycerides go down pretty good, 6%, and the glucose goes down about 5%. So that's just in 2 or 10 days. But what we have seen in about 3 months, like in New Start program, is that if people follow this for 3 months and they add, so this is just the diet. If you add the lifestyle habits like exercise, sleep, and all the other things like stress management and all the drinking water, all the lifestyle changes, if you incorporate all of it, by about 3 months, over 80% of people who follow all the exercise and all the lifestyle habits, including the diet, about 80% of diabetics can reverse the diabetes if they do it. So I think that's great. I don't know about you, but I think that's wonderful. Okay, I want to leave you my website once again, healthfortoday.net. Because if any of you guys haven't gone there and you want to try eating a plant based diet for 10 days, you can try it. If you haven't done it yet, I recommend you do it. You can download the 10-day program, the Daniel Challenge, from this website, healthfortoday.net. And so if you go there, you see right there on the top, it says, let's say 10-day challenge, 10-day challenge. You click there and it's free. You don't even have to leave sometimes you go to these websites and you have to leave your email or whatever. I don't even ask you to do that. Just download it. You can also do the intermittent fasting. And if you combine a plant-based diet and intermittent fasting, I don't think how you cannot not lose weight. For people who want to lose weight, I think it's almost impossible not to lose weight if you combine those two things. So anyway, I think I've gone over my time as I usually do. If you have any questions, I can answer any leftover questions unless the producer says, no, you have to go now. But I wanted to thank you for your time. I hope this has questions are fine. She said questions is fine. If you guys have any questions, let me know, or else we'll finish with prayer. But I wanted to thank you for your time, and I hope this has been beneficial to you. Let's see. Perfect. I hope this has been beneficial for you. I hope this has given you at least an idea of what we will be talking next. So next, in 2 weeks from Thank you. You're welcome, Candy. Thank you. Thank you for connecting. Thank you for being with us. Um, I am very excited. I hope that the next few presentations will be beneficial. I hope you invite people to connect the next 3 sessions, because it will be a complete seminar on reversal of diabetes and prediabetes and insulin resistance and all the metabolic conditions that are related to insulin resistance. So, hypertension, hyperlipidemia, that means high cholesterol, LDL cholesterol, which is the bad cholesterol, or high triglycerides, fatty liver. That's another one that's very much a metabolic condition. Of course, anybody who has high overweight or obesity, usually it has to do with metabolic condition, because anyone who has high or insulin resistance producing too much insulin. And insulin itself is a growth hormone, and therefore it makes you gain weight. So it is very hard to lose weight if you have hyperinsulinemia. So anybody who has overweight, obesity, high cholesterol, high triglycerides, hypertension, any of these things, try to make them watch this one and the next three. If I am oil free, can I still have avocados? I absolutely recommend eating avocados, nuts, seeds, any of these healthy fats, especially with your salads. Not a lot. You don't want to eat 2, 3, 4 avocados a day. A handful of nuts is about 1 ounce, is just about right for most people, unless you are a very active person like an athlete. Maybe 2 handfuls, or someone who is pregnant might need more calories. But you want to actually add those healthy fats, especially to your salads. Why? Because those antioxidants, like the beta carotenes, for instance, these are fat soluble. So if you're not adding fats to your salads, healthy fats with the fiber, nuts, it could be like you can make a dressing, for instance, with cashews or walnuts or almonds or avocado, or just add the avocados, chop them up, put them on top. Any of these things, or put, like flax seeds, any of these things. Any healthy fats will help you absorb the beta carotene and um, any of these other very healthy antioxidants that are in the salads and in the veggies. So yes, I absolutely recommend eating a healthy amount of fat every day, about 1 ounce of nuts or seeds, or maybe about 50 grams of avocado, so maybe an ounce and a half or something. Depends if you want to lose weight or if you're trying to gain weight. So it depends on each person. I restarted my vegetarian eating. I plan starting last Friday. Awesome, Harriet. Congratulations. Are there any recommended apps? I'm glad you asked. Actually, I do have a friend who is a Food for Life instructor. And Food for Life is a program with PCRM, Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine. And they have an app called 21 Day Vegan. I don't work for them. I just know that my friend is an instructor. So it's called 21 Vegan Kickstart. And it's an app. Uh, Most of the recipes are pretty good. I like them. They're at least plant based. You can even do grocery shopping lists and all these things. They have plenty of recipes. You can even change it to Spanish in the settings if you want Spanish recipes in Spanish. So anyway, it's a pretty good app. So I'm glad you asked. Awesome. Any other questions? If you don't have any other questions, I think we will finish with prayer. And so let's not forget that our next program will be July 8th, and 21 Day Vegan Kickstart. That's the one. So I think it will be a good one. It will be a good one, you guys. Uh, Tons of recipes. You can even do a shopping list. It's great. It's pretty good. Just if there's any, I don't think there's any oil, but if there's any oil, just you can leave it out or whatever. It's up to you. All right. July 8th, don't forget the diet. Share it with your friends, okay? Let's finish with a prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for today. Thank you for the opportunity to do this program. Thank you for all the knowledge you have given us and given access to us that we can share with other people. Help us, Lord, to share this information with others that might need it, and help us to be your ambassadors wherever we go, that we may help others to know you better, and to help them to know that you are our healer and our Savior. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you once again. See you in 2 weeks. Thank you for being with us. God bless you, and good night. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Deborah. Thank you, Harriet. And thank you, Martina. And let's see who else. The Mountains and the Sea, Candy, YBJ. Thank you, everyone. Good night.